How do you ensure a scalable and standardized communication environment that grows along with international expansion? And how can a modern customer contact center solution contribute to customer satisfaction and operational flexibility? Today, I'm discussing this with Tim Hermsen and Koen van Steen from Quooker, a global player and market leader in the field of instant boiling water taps. Since April 2023, Quooker has been using the Roger 365.io attendant and contact center solution, fully integrated into Microsoft Teams. I'm curious about their experiences and how this solution contributes to the growth of customer experience and digital transformation. My name is Patrick Scherbeijn, co-founder and CRO of Roger 365.io. Let's get started. Welcome, Tim and Koen. Thank you. Great to have you in the webinar, and to kick things off, let me start with the first question. Quooker, I know it very well, but could you briefly explain to the viewers what Quooker is?
Yes, absolutely. Quooker, a company that started a long time ago, began its journey in the basement on Rosenberglen, specifically at the home of one of our esteemed founders, Mr. Henry Petrie. At the time, he worked at Unilever and found it very strange that there was instant soup but no instant boiling water. That's when the idea started rolling, and that eventually became what you now know as Quooker, the boiling water tap.
Your main office is in De Kirk, but by now you've expanded all over the world, if I'm not mistaken. It's a family business with many branches. Can you give a brief overview of that?
Yes, look, we also try every 2 years to open a new country. At the moment, we're in about 16 or 17 countries, 19 countries. We continue to grow steadily and consistently, and we certainly try to keep that up for as long as humanly possible.
Cool. Yes, I saw somewhere in the preparation that you're represented worldwide, from Paris to Hong Kong, so that's really great. And if we look at customer contact center solutions, what was actually the reason for you to start looking for a new solution?
In the past, we still had an old-fashioned telephone exchange, and we actually started looking for a bit of digital transformation. So how can we do this better for the future? Then you quickly end up with Microsoft Teams. When we introduced Teams, it turned out that the queuing, specifically for call centers, was actually quite limited at that time. So we started looking for a partner who could help us more with that, like advanced queuing, waiting, messages, welcome messages, those kinds of things. And that's how we eventually ended up with Rosenthorst 465. And yes, that's where we still are to this day.
Yes. And just to go back to that moment when you started looking for a new solution, you came from a situation where you already had a system that was actually fully integrated into Microsoft, which was more of a Skype for business aligned system. And I remember you said in one of our previous conversations that in the end, there was quite a big gap between pricing, what was promised, and what was actually delivered. And eventually, Microsoft Teams came along, and then you said, this is really the moment to take another look at what's available.
Yes, we did indeed have another provider before this. That's actually something we'd rather erase from our memory, but it caused a lot of problems in terms of connectivity, dropped connections, and just not being able to get customer contact with our service department stable. Koen experienced that firsthand. And yes, it just wasn't working, so we started looking for another partner.
Can you briefly say something about that from your perspective, Koen? What impact did that have on your business? Let's say a poorly functioning system. Yes?
Quite a lot. Ultimately, one of the basic principles is that you have a stable connection. If you're on the phone with a customer and the connection drops, and that happens in the very first second of the call, so you haven't even had a chance to take any notes, then it's an incredibly frustrating experience for both the employee on the phone, but even more so for the customer. After all, they're not calling Quooker for no reason. Something is going on with the system, or they have a question. And if the connection drops, it's just really annoying. So when we heard that we were looking for a new provider, and since then I honestly haven't heard anyone mention it anymore, which means we now have super stable lines that not only adds a touch of professionalism, but also ensures a solid customer experience, which is something we really value.
Well, we're of course really happy to hear that. And Tim, if you look at the considerations, one of the reasons for choosing Roger 365 was that it's a fully Microsoft certified solution, completely integrated into the Microsoft ecosystem. You also work according to a certain philosophy, Microsoft unless you really have a Microsoft strategy. Could you elaborate on that a bit? Why did you choose that and what does it bring to your organization?
Well, look, Microsoft is simply the biggest and most dominant player when it comes to computer software applications. So we're talking about essential tools like Outlook, Excel, and also the very popular communication platform, Microsoft Teams. And we just really like that everything works together so well. The data you enter in one piece of software can be accessed in another, and that simply provides a much better work experience for your colleagues as well. So as much as possible in one place, and yes, in my opinion, there's really only one place you can do that, and that's through Microsoft. You see that large companies that build integrations, like yourselves, mainly build them on the Microsoft platform, because it's just very easy to integrate via the Microsoft Graph API and through other connection options. And yes, that's actually why we at Quooker have also chosen a fully Microsoft environment. And then, as I said, it goes from the Office package to Teams to Azure. Basically, everything is Microsoft.
Yes, where I, from my perspective, often initially think about easy management and that everything is immediately included in your security policies and all those kinds of IT advantages, I actually hear that you mainly look at what it can really mean for my business. How can I better serve my business? And you're basically saying that by choosing a Microsoft integrated native solution, I'm better able to provide the business with what it needs.
Yes, absolutely. What you're saying is right. It partly has to do with policy. So the policy rules that you can easily enforce for every employee, the software deployments you can carry out, for example, the Rotted Physics 5 contact center that just gets integrated into Teams. And the less inconvenience or trouble we can cause our colleagues with this, the better their work experience will be. The better the work experience is for the employees, the better the customer experience will be as well. Because the less they are bothered by things that don't work or things they're not allowed to do, for example, the better the customer experience will be for the people who actually call us.
Yes, a recognizable GUI, not having to switch too much between different applications, all of that distracts from what they ultimately need to do, which is help the customer. And as a result, they experience less stress and can ultimately help the customer better. What precisely makes it an absolutely indispensable and crucial link at this very moment for your daily operation?
When you have absolutely everything in the very same environment, it all truly feels the same, and that genuinely allows people to do their important work properly and efficiently because everything feels incredibly familiar. The buttons look precisely the same. It's all contained within the identical environment, so it just works super steadily and reliably for everyone. And yes, that means people can simply and effectively do their jobs properly and without any unnecessary complications. We now have stable connections. We're super flexible when it comes to setting up queues, how that experience should be, how lines are routed internally. We collaborate a lot on that, and it's all going really well. So in that way, you can achieve the highest possible standard when it comes to customer experiences, yes.
Yes, and if you carefully consider that particular aspect in combination with your broader international expansion efforts, how exactly do you effectively handle that? Do you typically create a comprehensive template for a specific location and then simply copy it, or what specific approach do you generally take?
Yes, of course. In the beginning, we spent a long time looking at what really works best for us, how do customers experience the conversation, and all the data we collected for that, we've implemented into a standard template, actually. So for any new country that comes along, as far as we're concerned, it's just copy and paste, change the country code, and basically we can get started. Like I said, we've done more extensive research on this because we want it to be, well, you have to see it like this. In every Quooker country you enter, when you walk into the office looks exactly the same as it does here in Ridderkerk. And we actually want to extend that to the telephony experience for people as well. So when you call Quooker Spain, it should be, apart from the language, exactly the same as when you call Quooker Netherlands. And the moment you can extend that experience to all the 19 countries we're in now, I think you create a really great experience for customers. Because it's not just the customers here in the Netherlands, but for example, we also have Dutch customers who live in Spain or in Portugal who might not speak Portuguese, but Dutch. And they can then also choose, if you're not from here, you can press option number 2 and get an English menu. And that's all been thought out to make the customer experience as good as possible.
Yes, and that's especially the flexibility and scalability that really helps you serve those offices also abroad? And if you look at it, what impact has ROCHA 3.5 had on the customer experience and the quality of service?
Well, that's the most important thing. Yes, that's obviously huge because as I just mentioned about stable connections, that's really where it all starts. We are flexible in how we set up the queue, and we've now arranged that very neatly. What you actually do then, and this is the next step, is that once the basics are properly set up, you can move on to things like dashboarding and more. That way you can actually start steering what's really happening now and what's causing it. So through dashboarding, and maybe you'll get to that in your next questions, but those kinds of great overviews really help to see what's happening in the call center, what people are actually doing all day on the phone. From there, you can of course train people to make things better and more beautiful. And in this way, it really helps to improve the customer experience and to keep delivering those premium service experiences that we strive for.
Yes, in that regard, in all the time I've been involved with Quooker, there's one thing that really sticks with me. You always say the customer is king, and that's deeply rooted. The desire to serve customers as well as possible. Well, what you just described, dashboarding, is of course very useful for you as a manager, at least to monitor what the service level is. If you look, for example, at how the employee experiences this when it comes to CRM integrations, have you activated things there, and what does that deliver? What does it contribute for the employee?
As you mentioned, we have integrated our CRM Salesforce into 1.565, mainly for the reason that we want to bring the customer to the forefront for the employee. So instead of just a phone number calling, where you have to pick up and actually have no idea who is on the line, it is now set up so that when the customer calls, the integrator recognizes the phone number and immediately shows who the customer is. So you instantly see the names of the customers who are calling you. So instead of answering the phone with "Good day, Koen," you can answer with "Good day, Mr. De Vries. Welcome to Koen. How can I help you?" Yes, just that one little part already makes such a difference in the customer experience. That's really something we need to do much more with. And there are plans in place to do just that, but this was the first good step. At the moment, it's only running for us in the Netherlands, but of course, we're going to roll it out to all the other countries as well, and very soon we'll be expanding it further.
Yes, nice to hear. And Koen, can you, because we just heard from Tim what it does for the customer, can you also explain what it does for the employee when they have this kind of functionality?
It just saves an incredible amount of time. So when someone calls and you only have a phone number and no other information, you first have to enter that phone number and then ask the customer who they are or if all the details are still correct. And the moment a name immediately pops up, you know that at least a record exists in our CRM system. Then it's just a matter of checking like, oh, are you Mr. De Vries or Mrs. De Vries, and is the phone number still correct? Because people might move, but at least you're already a step ahead instead of first having to figure out who you actually have on the phone. So you immediately take an extra step, and with those first two sentences, you say people already get the impression, oh, they've really got things well organized there. Yes, that immediately contributes to the premium service we have embedded in our DNA, and it really shines through thanks to these kinds of cool technological steps that we've recently gone live with. That's really awesome.
Yeah, nice to hear. When you consider and look at international growth, standardization efforts, and strategic expansion, could you please walk me through the entire process? I have observed that many other organizations and companies also frequently struggle with the significant challenge of how to consistently keep innovating effectively within such a large and established company, how to successfully introduce something genuinely new and groundbreaking, and then actually bring it into full-scale production and implementation. Tim, could you give us an idea of how you all handle that internally?
Yes, look, any new integration we create is always first discussed with Roger to see how it will help us move forward in what we do. I have to say, we have a fantastic team for that, Rustix 5, who we can always brainstorm with. They know the Quooker environment. They know who we are. For example, take a ChatGPT integration. How great is it that that's built right into your phone and it just listens in on the conversation, summarizes it, and then automatically adds it to the client case in sales? Yes, that's another time-saving feature that we're really going to be happy with. Those kinds of things, as I mentioned, are on our roadmap. We usually start by testing it here in the service department, and once they've had those customer experiences, We get feedback on what could be improved, how we can approach it better. Was the experience too short, too long? Does something need to be changed? We take that data with us, and then we usually move on to a nationwide rollout. In this case, 90% of it will be focused on the Netherlands. And once we've ironed out all the teething problems and know that it's truly a perfect product, then we'll proceed to roll it out country by country in a controlled way. And yes, we've done that 19 times out of 8, so to speak.
Yes, I think you also follow that bit of Rotterdam straightforwardness, no nonsense, just get on with it. If we have a good idea, we just try it out on a small scale, and then it's either something or it's nothing. And if it turns out to be something, then we roll it out on a larger scale. If you look at functionality, and if you look at the Roger 3's 5 environment, what are really the functionalities and features that, in your opinion, truly stand out? If you say, well, that's something I really couldn't do without anymore.
Yes, look, I think the whole package as a whole, we really can't do without it anymore at this point. It has clearly proven its worth, but what are really, really cool options are, for example, when a customer calls and it's busy, that can always happen. Then we can ask, would you prefer to continue on WhatsApp? That's possible. And then through Roger 4665, a chat conversation is started via WhatsApp, and the customer can just continue with whatever they were doing. But for example, the virtual waiting queue when it's busy, if you want to keep your place in line when it's busy, just press a number. You can, of course, set this up yourself, and then the customer will be taken out of the queue and called back later. That way, the customer doesn't have to wait unnecessarily in the queue. I can't say otherwise, but that really contributes to the customer experience. People don't want to be stuck waiting in a queue with their suppliers.
Yes, then you really have the best of both worlds. You relieve your own employees for a moment while the customer's irritation is gone, and they still feel like they will actually be helped later. Is that the case for you too, Koen? When you look at your daily tasks, is it mainly the reports and a bit of wallboarding that are really important to you, or are there other things as well?
Yes, definitely. I keep coming back to it, but just having a stable foundation, we have that in place now. So that's an incredible comfort for the people, because you have to imagine if you're working a whole morning, since we work in shifts, and you're on the phone all morning, and out of, 12 calls you make, there might be 4 where the connection drops. Yeah, then of course you're not sitting comfortably in your office chair. So that's step 1. And step 2 is indeed that if you can monitor what's going through, then you can also shift people around. So we have shifts, as I mentioned, where some people are on the phone and others are handling emails and that sort of thing. At that moment, when you see on the wallboard with proper dashboarding that the number of people in the queue is increasing a bit, so let's create a bit more availability in the call center by assigning people there. Yes, then you can really respond quickly, which ensures that the waiting lines remain acceptable. Yes, those kinds of things really do help to continually provide that consistently high level of customer experience to our valued clients. Yes.
And if you now take a careful look into the near future, Quooker is truly an innovative and forward-thinking company. The foundation is that it just has to work. That's something I hear very clearly from you as well. By the way, that's also what our CEO Gerben always says. All the functionality and features are great. But the core of a contact center is that it always works, and we should never lose sight of that. But if you look very carefully towards the near future, and I've heard some truly interesting things mentioned quite frequently before when people thoughtfully talk about you, such as advanced predictive maintenance functionalities and comprehensive capabilities. What are some things you're looking at for the future in terms of improving and changing your customer contact options?
I truly think that we currently live in an exciting era of artificial intelligence. But at Quooker, we are a company that values personal contact. Talking to a robot is not pleasant. So in the future, we're moving towards a situation where AI mainly provides support, whether that's for employees or for customers. But at Quooker, we will always maintain personal contact. I think that's one of the fundamental reasons why a service department can be successful. And I do think that AI will play a role in that in the future. For example, where you are greeted by name. Instead of welcome to Quooker, it's welcome to Quooker, Mr. De Vries, because the system already knows that. So I think that's where we're heading in the future. You see at other companies, they actually phase out the entire employee part. They just turn it into a fully AI-driven process. That's not what we're looking for. We're really looking for a collaboration between the people sitting here who have a passion for Quooker, who want to work here, but who also receive information from AI to make their work easier and better. And I think that's where we're heading in the future.
If I think about it for myself, just a very practical situation. Look, I think the biggest compliment I can give Quooker is that I have one myself for about 3 or 4 years now. And honestly, I had just forgotten that I had it. But now I use it every day. But I don't really think about the fact that there's a piece of technology in my kitchen island that's actually working for me every day until the day it needed to be replaced. And suddenly I heard a beep. And then I thought to myself, where could that beep be coming from? And that actually got me thinking about you. What if the day before you could get a little notification saying, hey, tomorrow your filter needs to be replaced. This is the procedure. Are these also the kinds of things you're really working towards?
Yes, look, like I said, we live in a world of IoT. So yes, of course, we can stay on top of that as a company. A bit of IoT, a bit of what you just mentioned, predictive maintenance. But of course, that requires data. The more data you collect, the sooner we can see for you, for example, that a water filter lasts about, well, I don't know exactly, but let's say 90 days. Then on day 89, we'll send that person a little notification for you. We'll come by tomorrow with a new water filter. How great is that? And so to speak, we didn't know exactly how that flow would go, but that's really great that you can know that in advance and inform customers ahead of time. Something might go wrong tomorrow with your Quooker and its water filter. The lid might break tomorrow. I have no idea. But the fact that we can anticipate that in advance is, of course, fantastic.
Yes, I think you really see there that it's not such a big deal because in the end it's technology and technology can break down. So it's not such a big deal if it breaks. It's more about how you handle it, making sure the problem is solved as quickly as possible and that the customer feels heard. Yes, absolutely. Let's start moving a bit towards wrapping up. Now, since April 2023, the receptionists are using it, the service desk is using it, it's been rolled out internationally. If you look at the whole process, the replacement process and the choices you made along the way, what would be the lessons learned if you had to do it all over again?
I think from the very beginning, we should have started right away with such a template. I would first think in advance about how we actually want the customer experience to go. Look, we came from a system called Siemens Unify. It's actually been quite a while since we moved away from that. We really started looking for a modern option. With Siemens Unify, you had to record messages, then send them to a web service, and then you could play that recording, and it was all very complicated. So we were really searching for how we should do this, how we were going to approach it. Well, that's, of course, at the moment when you start migrating to the new system, we need to switch over as quickly as possible because the old system just doesn't feel like what we want as a modern company. But if I were to do a new rollout, I would think about that more carefully. How are we going to make sure that this template is used in 19 countries? That the customer experience is the same everywhere? We are now at the point where we have that as our template. But it did take some time, precisely because we were lagging behind a bit. But in the end, together with Roger and our implementation partner, we said we just want to do this better. We want it so that when a new country comes on board, it's just a click away and the country can basically get started right away. That will remain the case in the future.
Yes, what you often see at many companies is that, well, a new system comes in and then we basically do a one-to-one transfer from the old system to the new system. Do you see any disadvantages to such a strategy? And are there things you might miss out on?
Yes, look, transferring a system to another one. Yes, look, it's the quick fix, so it works again very quickly. But especially when you have such a moment, I think you should really consider, since we're switching anyway, how can I make sure that the new system becomes better? How can we actually do this better compared to how it was before? Yes, so then you start thinking about things like templates for welcome texts, which are, of course, in the language of each country. So if you book Belgium or Portugal, you get a Portuguese menu, and that's the case for every country. So you make sure that it's better and that it's easy to adjust. Like we have it now, all texts are basically generated by AI. So basically, we only need to change the text in the designated field. And AI automatically turns that into a nice voice. And we can actually use that in any country.
Nice to hear. Well, as far as I'm concerned, I've asked all my questions. I really enjoyed hearing from you about your experiences and how you have experienced things directly. It's great to see that you are so enthusiastic about the solutions and the collaboration. Of course, I hope we can continue this together for many more years. So for now, from our side, thank you so much for participating in this customer reference. And I hope to see you again soon in person. And not from the studio, but then with a nice cup of coffee.
Good, right? Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Patrick.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.